Hello, everyone. I am here to talk about Rick Dennison, and the reason being he's worked with Kubiak forever. He's kind of been linked to Minnesota for the past, I want to say like 3 to 5 days. And so I gathered numbers. There's a few of them. And he was a Denver offensive assistant from 95 to 96, and he was also Denver special teams coordinator from 97 to 2000. And then for what we would be hiring him for is the offensive line. And in 2001 is when he first got his chance to work with the offensive line, and he was the offensive line coach. So from 2001 to 2005, attempts per game at 31.98. These are all averaged out, all of these numbers. I thought that would be easier for everyone. But 31.98 attempts per game. They averaged 145.8 yards a year, 4.56 average yards per carry, 15.6 20-plus yard runs, 4.2 40-plus yard runs, 17.4 touchdowns, and 30.2 sacks. And I wish I could have the quarterback hits numbers, but the website I used to get all of the numbers don't track that until 2009. But after that, Kubiak went on to, be Houston's head coach. So that left an opening for Denver's offensive coordinator. So he goes in, takes over from 2006 to 2008. And the rush attempts per game at 27.16, 124.4 yards a game, 4.6 average, and 20-plus yard runs. There are 14 of them a year. This is average still. 40-plus runs. There were 3. 12.3 touchdowns a year. His pass attempts at 33.13 per year, like per game. And they allowed 25 sacks a year on average. Then, in an odd way, he doesn't leave Denver, but he becomes the offensive line coach in 2009 after being the offensive coordinator from 06 to 08. And attempts per game, 27.5, 114.8 yards a game, 4.2 average, 7 20-plus yard runs, 1 40-plus yarder, 9 touchdowns. They allowed 34 sacks and 62 quarterback hits. So, not bad. Pretty good. And he then goes back to Kubiak in Houston as his offensive coordinator. Then the rush attempts per game during this 2010 to 2013 span that he was there, you have 29.5 rush attempts a game, 130.5 rushing yards a game, 4.4 average, 12.7 20-plus yard runs, 2.5 40-plus yard runs per year. 16 touchdowns were averaged with 34.8 passing attempts, and in sacks, 33.7 and 83.5 quarterback hits allowed per year on average. Then, after 2013, Kubiak leaves. He goes to Baltimore, be the offensive coordinator in Baltimore. So, naturally, Rick Dennison goes to Baltimore. But he's now a quarterback coach, which makes it a little interesting. And they average 34.6 attempts a game, 238.7 yards a game, 7.2 average, pretty low in the average, 27 touchdowns to 12 interceptions. In terms of the 20-plus yarders, they had 50, 7 40-plus yarders, the quarterback rating of 91. There were 19 sacks and 56 quarterback hits. And I think that's an okay thing that looks efficient. Like it was an effective passing game, even not a great one, but it was efficient but effective. And Kubiak then goes to be the head coach of the Denver Broncos in 2015 through 2016. So Dennison, again, following Kubiak, is the offensive coordinator during this time frame. And their rush attempts per game during these 2 years, 25.6, exactly 100 yards per game rushing. a 3.9 average, 7.5 20-plus yards, and 1.5 40-yarders in the run game. And you can already see their explosive plays kind of went down from last time they were working in the run game. But part of that could be they haven't been there for a while. This is really the only 2 years, since they left, or even left again, where Denver was running that zone system. So you had a bunch of linemen that didn't fit a zone system, and you're trying to make them run zone. So, and this is by far the worst statistical thing that they had together. But they had 12.5 touchdowns per year in those 2 years, 36.7 pass attempts per game, 39.5 sacks, and 98.5 quarterback hits a year. Now, in 2017, he goes on to be the offensive coordinator for Buffalo, and rush attempts, 30.4, rush yards, 126.1, an average of 4.1 yards a carry, 17 20-plus yarders, and 140-plus. He had 12 touchdowns that year. His passing attempts were at 29.8. He allowed 47 sacks with 90 quarterback hits. And then that was his only year as the offensive coordinator for the Buffalo Bills. Then he goes over to the division rival, the New York Jets, to be their offensive line coach / run game coordinator for 1 year in 2018. And the attempts per game are 25.6, 101.4 yards a game, 4.0 average, 11 20-plus yard plays, 3 40-plus yard plays, 11 touchdowns. They allowed 37 sacks on 74 quarterback hits. Now, I understand it's hard to take in all the numbers and know exactly where that would, how that is. So I went ahead and I averaged what Zimmer's offensive line have done in the past 5 years since he's been here. And they averaged 26.5 rush attempts a game, 108.4 rush yards a game, 4.08 average per rush, 12.6 touchdowns, 11.8 20-plus yarders, 2.4 40-plus yarders, 40.2 sacks, and 95.6 quarterback hits. Now, this is where this kind of gets interesting, because if we can kind of get this if we can get this on the right direction, if we are to hire Rick Dennison onto the same track with Gary Kubiak, when that was working real well, you could be talking what they had back in 2001 to 2005, or even when they were in Houston together, where they ran the ball almost around 30 times a game, 31.98 from 2001 to 2005, and 29.5 from 2010 to 2013. And they averaged 145.8 yards per game in 2001 to 2005. That's an average per season. That's their average per season, which means this is the normal season for them. And in Houston, they got 130.5, which is a ridiculous amount, compared to what we've been getting. And the fact that pretty much on average, they're allowing around 30 to 33 sacks a game, maybe 34, when the average under Zimmer has been 40. It's pretty good. That's not bad. And a lot of the quarterback hits have also been down lower. The only year that even compares to the averages among Zimmer is the 2015 to 2016 averages, which, like I said, they were working with offensive linemen that don't really fit what they were trying to do. And all that did was yield a Super Bowl victory, albeit mostly led by the defense. But still, this makes a lot of sense to happen. And obviously, Dennison has worked with Kubiak a lot. And like I said, with all this, they've often had good or great results to come with it. And the added benefit is Dennison has been an offensive coordinator 4 times, which would give our guy Stefanski an extra voice to lean on. and that might be very valuable. And I don't know, like this, the only thing that makes me wonder what's going on with this whole thing is he was rumored to be the expected guy to be hired by the Vikings for their offensive line coach. And that was about 4 or 5 days ago, I think. So why hasn't it happened yet? That's a little concerning to me because Dennison has at least been in the same build, or at least known Kubiak since 1995, which is a very long time. He's worked with Kubiak a lot. Like, those two should be good. And the fact that it hasn't happened yet is a little concerning. But I do think if we can land him, I think this would be very good. I think we finally have coaches that obviously think alike and just an offensive line coach that really meshes with what we're trying to do on offense. Because even though Stefanski's the offensive coordinator, it kind of looks like since Kubiak kind of brought in his own little army of guys, that Stefanski's pretty much the play caller in Kubiak's offense, if that makes sense. Like, it will be Kubiak's plays, but there's going to be the play preference and the order in the game of which they're called, which is going to be on Stefanski. So I'm really thinking this guy Dennison, even though he doesn't have the name of a Bill Callahan or, the James Campen from Green Bay, I think this is the clear top choice currently for the Vikings. And I think this is what we should be rooting for to happen. And I would like to know what you guys think down in the comments below. Until next time, I bid y'all adieu.